Hey, Sean, great show. And I have some incredible news to share with the Fox viewers tonight. Welcome to the Ingraham Angle. Senator Al Franken's offering a not-so-funny farewell. The man who was accused of multiple gropings and other stuff will resign, but no apologies, no admission of guilt, just accusations, and lashing out, of course, against President Trump and Senate candidate Roy Moore. As predicted, Franken was a victim of the PC lynch mob, but now there's a backlash against the Ingraham Angle for identifying the real cause of his ousting. It was all a cynical political ploy. And a huge development at the Justice Department, a top official demoted after reportedly, as we thought, coordinating with the law firm peddling that infamous anti-Trump Russian dossier. But we begin with the fall of the liberal icon comedian Al Franken and the Me Too pandemic. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Look, Franken really had no choice after most of his Democratic colleagues in the Senate called on him to quit. But listen closely to his statement today.
Some of the allegations against me are simply not true. Others I remember very differently.
Think about that for a moment. He's basically calling members of that Me Too movement liars. But he's unwilling to fight for his reputation. I happen to think this is a bad decision, and I pretty much don't agree with him on anything. And why did his fellow Democrats turn on him so fast and so furiously? As we explained in the Angle last night, the Dems did not suddenly become beacons of morality, wagging their fingers at everyone else because they're on the moral high ground. This was a crass political ploy. Democrats dumping Franken overboard because now that they can claim, hey, the moral high ground for 2018 and pursue allegations against Donald Trump and Roy Moore. There's no due process. If you're accused and you're a man, you're accused, you're done.
This is Venezuela, Cuba. This is every third world banana republic. Let's not have due process. Let's not ask anybody any questions. Let's not have any chance to have a hearing. Let's just lynch him. Because when we get done lynching him, we'll be so pure. We'll feel so good.
The new Puritanism in the Democratic Party. That's a switch. And you wouldn't believe the headlines we got in response. The Washington Post wrote, Al Franken finds unlikely defenders on Fox News. The Huffington Post, almost identical, meet Al Franken's Republican defenders. Mediaite, Laura Ingraham, Newt Gingrich defend Franken from Dem lynch mob. Newsflash, we weren't defending Franken. We were defending the notion that one should be considered innocent until proven guilty. You see, the real story here, what we were warning you about, is it's kind of a PC pogrom underway with a nasty political edge to it. They're dropping like flies now. Former Democratic Congressman Harold Ford Jr., he was fired today by Morgan Stanley for allegedly several years ago grabbing a woman. He was trying to take her out to drinks a couple of times, I guess. She didn't like that. And now he's vowing to sue the woman and Morgan Stanley in response, that it never happened. Congressman Trent Franks, this was a bizarro one, he announced today that he's going to step down rather than endure an investigation for having what he called a discussion of surrogacy with two previous female subordinates. And that takes the cake. Now, look, we need to be careful here. You, myself, everyone, that we don't get so caught up in the white heat of the movement, the Me Too movement, that lives and careers are destroyed without much evidence and in a flash. And look, there are credible allegations out there. There are creeps that need to be shown the door, no doubt about it. But we also have to be wary of what I call the Me Too flu. The gender opportunists who come out of the woodwork with allegations many, many years later because it serves a political or a personal end. Are any of you getting tired of the sudden explosion of moral piety spewing from those who ended up enabling the real abusers by looking the other way because it was political expedient to do so for years? Me too. And that's the angle. Joining us now with reaction, attorney and GOP official Harmeet Dillon, along with Democrat Capri Cafaro, former minority leader in the Ohio State Senate. Harmeet, let's start with you. I mean, I'm not a fan of Al Franken. He and I have clashed a lot politically over the years, and I found him actually personally quite nasty. But I'm getting a little bit worried about where this is all going, because the Democrats clearly would not have acted against Al Franken if they had had the White House and they had had a decent majority in the Senate. This was so they could tar Trump and go after Roy Moore. I have no doubt in my mind. Absolutely, Laura. I agree with your comments yesterday and Newt Gingrich's. I think that Al Franken is a human sacrifice on the altar of 2018 for the Democrats. And, you know, look at the leader of the pack, Kristen Gillibrand, who last year was campaigning happily with Bill Clinton, sends him thank you tweets, and thinks it's all hunky-dory. And then when it's expedient to throw the Clintons overboard, which they've done, now they've done that as well. And so I think this whole Me Too movement has been enabled by the fact that the Democrats are no longer held back by the Clinton dynasty, because for all these years, everybody knew it was wrong, what was happening, yet they couldn't say anything because the leaders of their party were the ones doing the offending and the demeaning and the shaming and the blaming and all those bad things. And so now it's a new day, but I think they're going a little bit overboard here. And I'm not sure Al Franken, based on his comments today, is truly with the program. Now, Capri, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, look, I mean, I think the entire thing is gross, frankly. I mean, I do think that...
Well, what does that mean? Everything's gross.
Everything is gross.
The culture is gross today.
The culture is gross. Yeah. I think this entire thing is indicative of the swamp. It is the swampiest of swamp thing. So, number one, I think that Al Franken is not necessarily on board, but I do think that he did this to take one for the proverbial team. But he says he's going to stay... He's going to keep his voice. What does that mean? He's going to keep That's
his
a really
voice?
good question. And here's why. Because obviously he resigned because the Democrats wanted to make sure that they were, quote unquote, like...
clean.
Yeah.
Now it's like
they're getting the high ground, right? They're getting the political high ground. They're getting the political high ground here in light of the theoretical victory of Roy Moore next week, right? So what happens, number one, if Roy Moore loses, that'll be very interesting.
He's not going to lose.
I don't think he's going to lose. Yeah. But, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you know, poor Al Franken is trying to salvage his reputation. But what makes me angry is that if people were not called out, Democrats or Republicans.
Roy Moore said he didn't do any of this. Roy Moore is denying this.
But Al Franken denied it all too.
Right, so he shouldn't have quit. Roy Moore's fighting. Roy Moore's fighting, and I didn't even endorse him, but Roy Moore's fighting.
But here's the bottom line.
Quitting.
But from a Democrat,
he won't stand up to those Democrat women.
From a Democrat perspective, Democrats and myself included say, look, you know, if you believe women, if you believe victims.
Can a woman ever tell a tale that is false about a man? Does that ever happen? Because to watch what people are saying about this, all women are saints. All women are saints, and all men are sinners.
We need to be careful, and we do need due process. But
there's no due process.
There is there's no due process on either side. It needs to be equitable. The bottom line is it needs to be equitable. Democrats and Republicans alike.
This is what I say, Harmeet. A mere allegation. Now, Harold Ford Jr., who I know a little bit, is now several years ago. I guess you can't ask someone for a date more than a couple of times. Well, and now that's a violation. You can't. And the Trent Franks thing, I don't know what to think about, but I don't even see how that would be harassment unless it were a condition of employment or part of an overall hostile work environment, which it's not.
And most of the Al Franken incidents are that way as well.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference between John Conyers, who allegedly harassed a number of his subordinates, but Al Franken doing the grabbing of the butt cheeks in public venues. There's no actually legally, I mean, you take that case to a DA, they're not going to prosecute that.
I mean, George H.W. Bush apparently is getting Randy in the wheelchair.
All the time. Let's leave that problem alone.
I'm just saying, if you're going to be equitable, you just said be equitable. You want to be equitable, let's be equitable.
For every offense.
But I'm saying this is going to backfire on women. I know I've had conversations with so many men over the last couple of weeks. Everyone's afraid. Everyone's afraid to hire women on women. They're afraid to travel with women. They're afraid to be alone in offices with women, because if it ends up being their word against a woman's word in this climate, they're done.
But
they're done.
No, but you know,
no matter what.
And that's lovely. But at the end of the day, not only is it important to believe women, but at the same time, we do need to engage in due process. And there is a way to marry those two things.
This is politics. Politics is a different court than the courts.
It's not a court, but that's why it's so dangerous. When it becomes... Bad actors should be removed from office. If you're harassing...
Democrat or Republican.
It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with politics. but it has taken on the edge of political warfare, and that's where it's tedious for people. And I'm telling you, it's going to backfire on women. This is not good. Time Magazine, the Me Too movement's the person of the year. Well, I wonder what it'll be next year.
Let's make sure it's not the flavor of the week, because here's the risk for women. When we cry foul too much, then we diminish the real victims.
Well, I mean, Ted Kennedy, it was the last time I checked, Republicans and Democrats lionized him when he died. And he was a big figure in the Senate. He also had quite the reputation.
I was his intern in graduate school.
Right, and I have
the greatest respect for that.
Well, he actually was very nice to me personally, and I actually liked him personally. But I'm saying, he had his own issues, but going way back to the late 60s, we have to go back to Chepquiddick. Right. But, I mean, come on. And no one's house is clean here.
Nobody's house is clean.
It's one thing to change the rules going forward, but another thing to bring up 10-year-old allegations.
I know, 10 years, forget. Okay, John Lewis says he will not appear at a Mississippi, I guess it's a Civil Rights Museum event, if Donald Trump is present.
It's sad. You know, this man is a legitimate, bona fide hero of the civil rights movement, and now he's throwing his legacy down the drain by refusing to work with a Republican who's actually improving the lot of African-American people in his state. So I think it's really unfortunate.
The economy's soaring, and it's helping everybody.
Absolutely.
He is a civil rights icon. He has the right to protest, as every American does. I understand where he's coming from, and let him do what he wants to do.
Civil rights for everybody. I mean, I don't get that. I find that very.
It's easy to have civil rights for everybody unless you were denied them at some point.
Yeah, well, okay, so I guess it's all a litmus test at this point. Ladies, it's great. Can I still say ladies? I don't even. Girls,
you can't say ladies,
can't
women,
say girls,
broads,
chicks. All right, broads. All right. Ferocious wildfires are spreading across Southern California, including toward a location where Fox's Adam Housley is currently standing by. Adam, very worried about you watching these flames.
Yeah, this was one of the big fires that have been burning in Southern California. This all began Monday night when we had those Santa Ana winds come through here and really low humidity levels. Good news is the winds have not come back as once feared. Bad news is you still see a number of flanks of this fire, the Thomas Fire, burning. You can see threatening homes. In this area is just outside of Ventura, between Ventura and Ojai, which is basically about an hour or so north and west of Los Angeles. This fire has chewed up more than 115,000 acres since Monday night in several hundred homes. While this fire burns here in a number of locations, and it's pretty spread out. There's a new fire that started today in San Diego called the Lilac Fire. That one there has burned more than 3,000 acres and several homes. Let me clarify that. 3,000 acres burned, several homes in San Diego, but 18,000 people have been evacuated down there because of the conditions. And as you can tell, these conditions are still rough. This is very steep and difficult terrain in many cases. And a lot of these cities haven't burned, or the areas around the cities haven't burned in a long time, including here in Ventura and Santa Barbara County. So right now, this is the firefight that firefighters are facing. Obviously, not a lot of air support this time of night. In fact, we haven't seen very many helicopters at all. The good news, again, though, to give it back to you, Laura, is there are no winds right now, at least in this area, and they're hoping it stays that way. But again, the red flag warnings remain here in California until midday on Saturday. Laura?
Adam Housley, thank you so much. Stay safe, my friend. And the FBI chief tries to defend the Bureau to Congress today. It was wild. It was an onslaught of anti-Trump bias accusations, plus they're top of the Billboard charts singing nuns. We're going to introduce you to them. Stay with us.